What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. You're seeing this Newswave in particular a couple of hours early because, go figure, there's a direct happening, which we'll talk a bit more about that, but I figured, you know what, we'll give this Newswave at least a couple extra hours to breathe before that big event happens. And yes, I will be having a reaction to the direct immediately following it, so keep an eye out for that. Today, though, we do have some stuff to go over, which includes Nintendo pushing an update behind the scenes that actually could bring about some interesting ramifications for Nintendo Switch Online. Also, we have some controversy breaking out around Sega and Crazy Taxi as they had to disclose certain parts of the game that people weren't exactly thrilled with, and we had a bit of a cancellation scare for Microsoft with Blade. And, well, that fan base, they've been through it enough outside of games, but fortunately, it seems like this one isn't necessarily something we need to worry about just yet. All of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with what else but that Nintendo Direct. You can see over on their social media account, Nintendo of America says join us at June 9th at 7 a.m. Pacific, so 10 a.m. Eastern Time, for a Nintendo Direct followed by a Nintendo Treehouse Live. The Nintendo Direct will be roughly 50 minutes, and Nintendo Treehouse Live will be 95 minutes. So I'll do full coverage on this tomorrow in Newswave. We'll go line by line. But again, immediately following this, so this is 10 a.m. Eastern, look out for a video after 11 a.m. Eastern Time, where I'll just kind of give my initial reactions to some of the bigger announcements. If you're looking to kill time, though, before that Direct, I put out a video yesterday with some of my predictions and expectations for what we should see here, but I do think this is going to be a big Direct for Nintendo. I mean, just look at the length of time. It's 50 minutes long, and then an hour and a half Treehouse. There's going to be a lot of stuff happening here, and I'm going to do my best to keep you guys up to date on all of it, so should be fun. Keep an eye out for that Direct, and then my eventual reaction towards it. Also, we had a series of strange events happen here for Microsoft post Xbox Game Showcase, where now the Xbox exclusive thing is thrown back into the conversation because there were two instances where it was once again some mixed messaging and one kind of embarrassing moment. So for one, Halo Campaign Evolved had a trailer that was released, cinematic trailer, and it was captured on PlayStation 5 Pro, and it says it right at the beginning, and of course, this raised some eyebrows, had some people scratching their heads over that one, because it's like, well, okay, it is on the PS5, but does it have to be advertised completely front and center as, like, PS5, here's PS5 Pro capture, when you could just easily, like, have Xbox Series X, or even better than all that, PC recording for the game. But look, Microsoft's already made the move to PS5 with this specific Halo game. We'll see about future ones. So obviously they want to advertise to as many people as they can with it. The other one that was a bit more egregious is there was actually a video or a live stream that was taking place where they were talking about Microsoft about Gears of War E-Day, and they flashed up like a card with the different systems, and yeah, the PS5 was on there. This sort of leans in the idea that this was like a 0-hour decision that they were moving support for the PlayStation 5 as in no PS5 version. There, of course, talks that there is a PlayStation 5 version that is ready to go, but Microsoft decided to not present that. And this didn't help the matters here for that speculation. Microsoft did remove that video completely. It was just privated. And then Aaron Greenberg said a few things like, hey, that's not actually what happened here, guys. It wasn't set up for the PS5. It was a trailer that was sent out to certain outlets early on, and people, of course, don't believe it. So not a great look there, but I mean, hey, if Microsoft, they must be really serious about Xbox exclusivity going forward for certain games, especially if they're willing to pull an entire version of the game out of circulation. Oh, and here's some fun news for Guild Wars 3. You can see this. This is over on Eurogamer, saying Guild Wars 3 will have no Battle Pass or subscription because ArenaNet Studio lead doesn't want to keep people hostage. And this is the interesting thing about Guild Wars in general. I know the first one, it really bucked the trend with the idea of a pretty sizable MMO, like a high production MMO that had no subscription fee despite World of Warcraft, having that. But in this case, they do talk about how there'll be post-purchase spend, I'm sure, things you can buy in the game beyond just the initial purchase, but it's also going to still be a premium game that sells, and then there's no subscription attached to it, no battle pass, and they're going to lean more into the idea of it doesn't have to be an MMO that just takes over your life. And I kind of like that idea. People were saying that Guild Wars 2 is kind of like that as well, where if you go back to it, or even go to it for the first time now, yes, you're years and years behind, but it actually still kind of helps you out as a new player to, I don't want to say catch up, but at least stand alongside of people who have been there since the beginning. So I'm going to keep an eye on this Guild Wars 3 because so far I like what they're saying about it. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and a certain update that was noticed in a data mining. And this is an interesting one because it kind of adds another dimension to Nintendo Switch Online, specifically with their retro game offerings. And they have a whole bunch of systems right now. I mean, literally it's hundreds of games. It's kind of hard to argue with $50 per year and just the amount of older titles that you have access to right off the bat. But I do think they can do more when it comes to feature sets around this, and it seems like they are, actually. And we can see this. Now, this is from Luigi Blood over on Blue Sky social media, saying, so for some reason, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, Nintendo Classics apps have been updated to a major version bump. I have looked very quick. Please wait a bit for me to look deeper, but it is worth a major update. Going on to say they have implemented challenges, stuff akin to NES Remix. Not the remix kind from what I can tell, though. You cannot access them yet. You have to wait until the NSO app updates, saying they're not going to reveal the games, so we'll probably find out soon. I don't know, maybe in a direct later on this morning. Going on to say that said, I still think there's no excuse for not putting more languages for some games on Super Nintendo and Game Boy. Can agree with that there, yes. But here we have another follow-up saying, just to be clear about certain things, there's no new games added. The challenges are only for specific games. The instructions clearly mention to use the NSO home menu app to access them. There's no in-app menu to access them. And they have no idea what rewards they would bring. So they go on a bit further to discuss some of the nuances around this, even kind of pushing back at the idea of a retro achievement style system, because this is one that would be more comparable to NES Remix challenges that have a specific start point and a specific fail state and success state. Okay, I actually like the idea though, at looking at some of these retro games, Super Nintendo, we'll say Mario World, okay? And there is a challenge, maybe it's a speed run challenge. Can you get through this level in X amount of seconds or something? Like get through it in a minute. And if you're able to complete it, you get a badge or a stamp, something like that that can attach to your account. I think Nintendo should think more and more around the idea of personalizing the account beyond just, your profile picture or whatever else, right? I know they have stuff you can earn and then buy, like these platinum coins. I like the idea of having challenges like this in like a Nintendo Switch Online account with like Super Nintendo games, and you do get achievement markers basically, or trophies or something cool that would be added in to older titles that would make you want to go back and play them, but more importantly, give you another reason to subscribe to their service. And that is the whole point of trophies or achievements or maybe stamps. It is the idea to tie you to that service or that brand going forward. And yes, I know not everyone out there cares that much about achievements or trophies, but some people legitimately do, and it is so important that they will not leave that platform. And so in this case, Nintendo, maybe not a one-to-one representation, but I like the idea of them adding in extra wrinkles and different content or ideas that might just be very simple as like, yes, go through the level in X amount of time, but it could be getting certain amounts of coins, getting through a level without dying, anything else like that. But ways to show off, how good you are at a game. And I think it's really fun with the retro titles. So something to keep in mind as we go into this direct happening here in a few hours. Something Nintendo Switch Online related that's not necessarily just here's Mario Sunshine for the GameCube. That's fine, but we already know about it. I'm looking for something to shake things up at least a little bit here with this service going into year 2 for the Switch 2. Next up, let's talk about Sega and some controversy around Crazy Taxi as, you probably guessed it, AI is the topic of conversation here with this game. Now, it was pretty straightforward when we saw the trailer. It was very exciting. You got that wave of nostalgia with Offspring hitting and Axel driving all over the place like a crazy taxi driver, sure. But after all this happened, store pages went live, specifically on Steam, where there's a pretty standard description, but there's also a disclosure that's attached to it. And we can see now this is over on Push Square, who was following along because there are a couple of updates, all right? And the disclosure does mention developing using generative AI, saying at Sega, we utilize generative AI as a support tool for developers, aiming to provide better content to our users and enable developers to focus more on creative tasks. We have used such generative AI support tools during development of Crazy Taxi World Tour. No AI was used in reference to the performers in the games. I guess that would be like voiceovers, which we've seen that kind of already done for different games. It could even be likenesses or appearance, anything there we use generative AI. Okay, but we did have a follow-up here, and this was with Game Informer managing a statement about this a little bit more, as I mentioned. They say generative AI is available as an optional support tool for the developers, and this generative AI was used to support our teams during development of background assets for Crazy Taxi World Tour. Assets generated were still subject to review by the development team. No AI was used in reference to the performers in the game. They really want to hammer that home. Like, hey, we're not replacing people in the game, okay? Now, to go a little further here, Kotaku got a statement from the series creator, Kenji Kano, saying, we used generative AI as a reference, so our artists would pull up and generate some of their ideas, and then they would look at that, generated image, and then they would draw the actual thing. So actual creators, everything from programming to assets, everything is made by an actual human. It's only used as a reference for them to look at, and then they would actually create the actual thing that would go into the game. Now, they pushed a little further here about the generative AI reference tool, saying for us, the extent of how we use generative AI is only what I mentioned earlier. It's just for ideas and just as a reference. Moving forward in the future, generative AI is probably going to be more of a hot topic, but I think that's all I can say right now on how we use generative AI for this game. Now, we've heard about generative AI creating placeholder assets in different games. That was something that actually Claire Obscure came under some scrutiny for because they were left in the game and then they had to go patch them out. But the idea of using AI or generative AI to say, hey, this is what I think this scene should look like, create it, or this is what I think the poster on this side should look like, or I think people are saying, oh, there's 5 guys in the game or something. Oh, here's what this restaurant facing should look like. They see it, and then they go over to the other screen and they actually draw it out or graphic design it or whatever. So that's the thing. Generative AI, and we've been over this a bunch of times now on this channel, it's going to be used by these companies. It just comes down to if they want to tell you about it or not, at least on the lead up to the game. I still think there's going to be many games that you play over the next couple of years that did use generative AI tools in development, all right? You like the game, you're like, this is great, or maybe you don't like it, but there are going to be games you do really like, and then you find out years later at GDC in a talk that they do showing how they made the game, oh yeah, we use generative AI to get ideas for this character, to get ideas for this landscape, or even these gameplay concepts that we came up with. And these companies know, they've shown it to us as we've kind of looked into their investor reports, that Capcom and Sega, as well as many others, are indeed exploring generative AI more and more because it speeds up development according to them. And I mean, if you look at the development budgets around games, time is equates immediately to money. That's time is money. So if they can cut down development time, they can save money. You'd assume lower expectations for how much a game should sell. We'll see about that. But at this point, for most of these games that you're going to see, I would just assume that AI is used somewhere, somehow, in the tool sets or just the overall development process. And if you're really, really against AI, just be relieved if it's not used. Next up, let's talk about Blade, as there were some concerns going around that it may have been canceled. Now, we didn't see it at the Xbox Game Showcase. That's kind of a shame because I want to see what Arcane does with this Blade franchise with a new title, a new video game. And mostly because I think it's going to be very, very, I'll say somewhat different than what we've had with Insomniac and Spider-Man and soon to be Wolverine. So with that in mind, I was pretty worried when I started to see things pop up that Blade might be in trouble or even canceled. Now, I know the movies, that's been through the ringer over and over again now, but a game like this, we already heard of Microsoft making cuts all over the place, a year ago, months ago even, so it's not out of the realm of possibility for this to happen, But this was coming way of Jeff Grubb, and it seems like maybe it was more speculation than anything, as he did respond, and then the news that a lot of this, that it was based on, was a tweet that was put out there, was then deleted, but we can see this is Jeff Grubb saying, "No, I was just speculating here. I've checked since. Sounds like there are reasons we haven't seen it, that being the Blade game, but those reasons are not because there are problems with the game. Not dead." Okay, so from there, again, there were concerns. People were trying to tag some of the creators for the game right now at Arcane, and we had a lead concept artist and art director assistant at Arcane respond, just saying, "Hey, let us cook." Okay, so it does appear that Blade is still in development, so good news there, because I'm telling you, the trailer they showed, we didn't see a lot. The art style was kind of there, right? Like, okay, I'm getting an idea here what this really was cinematic, but it has, I think, a very unique art style so far from what we've seen, and Arcane's a very talented studio, so I do believe we're going to end up with a good game. But the thing I do like here is it kind of seems like Microsoft or Bethesda even, like they're just kind of letting them, as they say, let them cook, but take their time with it. It has been, at the end of this year, 3 years since we saw that initial trailer for the game. So maybe it's something they'll line up again for the Game Awards, and we'll hear about how it's coming out 2027, maybe like second half. Although then we'll be on the build up to Helix, so maybe they'll hold it for that. I don't know, but Blade is going to be an interesting one to follow along with for the Xbox exclusivity talk, because that is not, I assume, going to be a cheap game to make. We already see the development cycle taking several years, but then also throw in the Marvel licensing fees. So if this ends up being an Xbox console exclusive, that'll really tell us how serious Microsoft is about this console exclusivity push. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Joy-Con drift and how Nintendo actually has to pay out now millions because of it. Now, we can see this. This is over on gamesindustry.biz, saying Nintendo of Europe has agreed to pay a 35 million euro fine after a French regulator found the company misled customers about Joy-Con drift defects on original Switch controllers. As reported by Le Monde, an investigation by France's General Directorate for Competition, Consumer Affairs, and Fraud Control, DGCCRF, found that Nintendo was aware of technical defects such as responsiveness issues and drift as early as 2018, but did not inform consumers until 2020. Ooh. Nintendo of Europe said in a statement that it did not intentionally mislead consumers, and that agreeing to the settlement does not constitute an admission of guilt and reflects only the amicable resolution of legal proceedings. I mean, I think a lot of people were looking at those Joy-Con sideways there just a couple of years in. It was pretty clear there was something going on with the fail rate that was happening. We have how many class action lawsuits that I'm sure will net people out there $1.12, or it won't be worth the paper that they send you the check on. But in this case, Nintendo is like, no, it's not an admission of guilt. I mean, there's obvious flaws with the joysticks in the Joy-Cons. I will say, I'm not seeing it as much with the Switch 2 Joy-Con controllers, but still, we're a year in now for the Switch 2, so we'll see in year 2 and 3 how these Joy-Cons are holding up. But there's still other class action lawsuits that are ongoing. For the size of a company like Nintendo, they're just always fighting lawsuits, talk about them in the courtroom constantly. In this case, though, it was more just fines from a regulatory body after their own investigation showing that, Nintendo kind of aware of the Joy-Con drifting situation. They just kind of let it sit for, a couple of years here going into 2020. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, if Zelda Ocarina of Time remake is real, where do you think Nintendo would put it? Okay, so again, I'm going with the idea that it's real. Man, so many people have been talking about this thing with the leaks and teasing going on. So I do think we're going to see Ocarina of Time remake. I would be kind of shocked if it wasn't shown today. November, though, look at that, the leading candidate. December seems so late. I don't think, you can say, okay, coming out in 2027. Sure, you never know. But I don't think Nintendo cares much about GTA 6. They're like, okay, we got Ocarina of Time. Guess what? It's coming out 4 days before GTA 6. It's like, what's up? The week before. I don't know if it'd be the week after, because that's you're right up against Black Friday and Thanksgiving. So I kind of think it'll be right in the middle of November. and they'll just roll right into that month with Ocarina of Time remake with not a care in the world with GTA 6 right there, because it's Ocarina of Time and it has that kind of a pull on many, many people out there to where, look, they're going to get GTA 6. They're also going to get Ocarina of Time remake because, I mean, it's Ocarina of Time. What are you going to do? And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Dessert saying, Booty is basically saying if y'all keep not buying games, they will go to PlayStation. Okay, so I feel like I need to clarify this from now on. That's Matt Booty, okay? His name is Matt Booty. I do like how everyone's just having fun and they just keep saying Booty. Like, that's, okay, sure. No, for this, they have to understand that being Microsoft, like really have to understand, you're gonna take some lumps here by making these games console exclusive, okay? I think they should really be leveraging PC, and I mentioned, oh, it's still on Steam. They kind of need that, I think, still to justify things until they get their Windows Store really figured out and do what they're apparently going to do, where Helix is an entire setup. I mean, it seems like they're working on this whole situation of merging Xbox, the console, with their PC side at years in, and it kind of feels like Windows itself is going to transform to a degree, and it will be like an Xbox PC hybrid. That, I think, is when they will think more about, okay, do we get away from Steam and just make games like platform exclusive here? As in, it's this Xbox Helix, I guess, location, and that's it. No Steam, no PlayStation. But no, I think they need to understand, hey, we're just not going to make as much money with some of these games that we keep on Xbox. The whole point is we have to give a reason people to be drawn to the Xbox that eventually becomes the Helix, so we can honestly kind of just rebuild this console base. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. I went over like all the games, by the way, that were announced over the last week or so. So if you want to get caught up, definitely check that out. Or if you want to check out some of those Nintendo Direct predictions and expectations leading up to the show, I'll leave that right below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.